The building was enormous in the old school. So much concrete and granite, benches kept up, burnished beautifully, and walking the marbled halls.
It is a beautiful courthouse. So many cases have gone on there. It is majestic. So many phenomenal judges have been in there. It is storied, and I think the heart and the spirit of that is something that everybody needs to keep inside of them, because that's really who the Central District is, from the judges to the staff to the law clerks to the court clerks to the AUSAs to the public defenders. That is the family.
The people, first and foremost, the history of this office, the remarkable legacy that one inherits and then one has an obligation to carry forward into the future. And we just attract the best people who understand that ethic and that commitment and live by it.
Here in Los Angeles, I got a call from Senator Wilson, and he said, well, Mr. Bonner, I'm so pleased that you are willing to become the United States Attorney, because I'm going to be submitting your name to President Reagan. And I'm saying, you're pleased? You couldn't have made me happier, Senator. I mean, this is my dream job.
I mean, look, I'm incredibly blessed, to say the least. It was beyond my wildest dreams. And you want to talk about sort of your life flashing in front of you.
When the word came out that I had been nominated first woman, and of course always the stories about me, almost from the beginning, were first woman. And I'm being interviewed and I talk about my parents, my mother born in Mexico, my father born in England, and never formalizing his relationship to this country. He's the illegal alien, but my mother was a naturalized citizen.
Kept arguing or telling me and how young I was and I didn't have any experience and I didn't know what I was doing as U.S. Attorney.
The reason I went to law school was having seen and read To Kill a Mockingbird, having read the book, and I thought, boy, that's what I want to be, Atticus Finch. Wow! And well then, when you get out in the real world, at least I'm not just talking me, I realized that, holy cow, what a privilege this is to be able to work for the ideals and the values that are in the Constitution.
Look at the cases at the U.S. Attorney's Office here, Riggs. Look at what the OCDETF folks brought, or the major crimes folks, or the fraud folks. You can look at 10, 20, 30, several hundred have been ensnared by the federal government in some of those very strong, driven cases by the DEA, ATF, FBI, and all the other agencies.
When I was the U.S. Attorney, we had more cases than you can imagine. Almost every area you can think of. Major narcotics cases, major money laundering cases, defense procurement fraud cases, security fraud cases principally through the major fraud section and so forth.
It was clear that the Rodney King prosecution had to be resolved. People were not in agreement in the U.S. Attorney's Office. Some people thought we should go ahead right away and indict them and go for it. Others, including myself, I felt it was the state's problem. It was the state's guys that had done it. It wasn't the feds that had done it. Well, as you know, they did not prevail. We got a grand jury together the very next day, and we had the indictment so that we could at least state that there had been an indictment and we were going to go forward with the case.
Some of the tougher decisions, and the ones that actually came to me immediately, were whether to appeal an adverse decision. I mean, the Armstrong case, I was very involved in that case. That was the case that went to the Supreme Court over allegations of selective prosecution in crack cocaine. And I had to fight pretty hard to get them to take that case. I mean, they don't take many discovery cases to the Supreme Court.
The espionage cases, you realize you can't always surface all the information that you have. So when you analyze the situation, you have to look at it with the framework of a single spy, now a double spy, but what if they're now going in triple? Because that did happen.
Bank robberies. There was a bank robbery every day in Los Angeles on average. It was almost like half the bank robberies of the entire nation occurred in the Central District of California, and I'm not kidding you. It was an extraordinary period, but also a period of great energy and enthusiasm and esprit de corps within the U.S. Attorney's Office.
I was the appointed United States Attorney in Los Angeles after 9/11, and the world changed on 9/11, at least for us in federal service. I could feel that difference, and it felt very daunting and it felt very serious, and it felt very needing of the utmost care and attention.
I remember, in particular, some of the gang work. They cleaned up entire neighborhoods. What's the impact? What happened? A year ago, the feds came in, they took down, I don't know, can't remember the number now, 70 some odd gang members. And the answer is, we can walk the streets. These little kids can walk down to catch the bus, and they're not gonna get jumped.
I had a vision, which I saw needed some work, is to try and bring both the criminal and the civil side together as a single office.
Resources was always the battle. There was the Attorney General's Advisory Commission that the Attorney General put together, and everyone was looking for resources. I was very fortunate in that I could stand up and say, hey, wait a minute, we are 3 times the size of the second largest, New York, which is always our competitor, and we are 3 times as large, not only in territory, but certainly in population and in the criminal statistics.
The amount of institutional knowledge that the Brozios had, both with respect to the criminal and civil division, was amazing, and it was important to the office.
And Bob was the unique person. He was the one who had the ever-living mind.
Fred was a genius. Bob knew everything about the criminal justice system, and if you could get your case by Bob Brozio, it was going to be a winner when you went to court.
It's important for AUSAs to connect with the community so that they understand the community that they are serving and protecting.
What's going to separate you is being a good guy or a good girl, and projecting. And if you put that together, you can't miss. Probably put more emphasis on personality than grades. I thought grades was certainly an indicator and very important, but I like to think I was getting people persons, because that's the job of an assistant in court, is to be a people person to sell.
There aren't too many lawyers who can claim that they represent the United States of America. That's the position that I think they have to take. That they are not there to win or lose cases. They were there to represent the United States government.
It is the single best job you will ever have. Your worst day as an AUSA is 100 times better than your best days in private practice.
As U.S. Attorney, you will always be on the good side of anyone you hired as an AUSA, because you will always be the person who gave them the best job of their lives.
It really is the greatest job you can do with a law degree. The fact that AUSAs are given almost carte blanche permission and authority to go out and do the right thing.
But it's the best job if you actually make the most out of it.
The U.S. Attorney's Office, that was the best job, because you're really right there in the thick of it.
You want an office, you want people who understand that their responsibility isn't just to go down and slash and burn. That's not the responsibility. The responsibility really is to do justice.
I think there's fairness and honesty is probably the most important.
You will be one of the most important people in the lives of another individual. One has to make sure that one dedicates one's entire wealth of talent and energy to make sure that the gravity of the situation is met with the dedication of that talent and energy.
Soak it up, enjoy every single second of it. Volunteer, get in court, that's what you came here to do. It's okay to stumble, lose cases, it's okay. Enjoy the ride, because it'll be so memorable.
But the AUSAs, with the support of that staff, were really the heart and soul of the office.
You have great AUSAs who are making great cases. That makes for a great office. We're lucky when we get to be the U.S. Attorney, because we get to work with and collaborate with phenomenal AUSAs. But the heart of the office isn't the U.S. Attorney. The heart of the office is the AUSA.
You got to find something that you really love and that means something to you. Man, I ought to be paying them to do this stuff. I really like this.
One of the reasons we started this history project is to memorialize all the great stories from assistant U.S. attorneys and U.S. attorneys who have served in our district. Unfortunately, we lost Matt Byrne far too soon, but we hope in our history project, many of his colleagues and those who work for him will tell the stories and add and embellish to them in just the way that Judge Byrne would have done.
All I hope is that I have done the right things